Picture this. Your bank texts you because someone charged your card $4.99 for a subscription you don't remember signing up for. You're annoyed. You call. You dispute it. You feel borderline outrage over $5. Now, here's the part nobody sent you an alert for. It's been 14 months since you sat down with your sister and actually said the thing you've been meaning to say. No notification. No, are you sure you want to let this slide pop up? Just gone. That gap between how carefully we guard $5 and how carelessly we let 14 months evaporate is basically the whole mystery singer-songwriter Bonnie Raitt stumbled into back in the early 90s. She wasn't trying to write a hit. She was just watching people, friends getting older, her own parents aging in real time. And what struck her wasn't death exactly. It was something quieter. People's relationship with time seemed to change the second they realized it had a ceiling. That observation became the song Nick of Time, and eventually the album that won her a stack of Grammys nobody expected, including her. Ask most listeners what the song means, and you'll get some version of, it's about getting older, or it's a carpe diem thing, seize the day, don't waste your life, write it in a journal and move on with your week. That's the surface read. It's not wrong, it's just shallow. Because seize the day is the kind of advice that sounds true and changes absolutely nothing. Everybody already agrees time matters. Nobody needed a Grammy-winning songwriter to confirm that. The actual interesting question isn't whether time matters. It's why we treat it like it doesn't, even though we know better than that. Here's what's actually going on. And it's almost funny once you see how simple it is. We're vigilant about anything we can watch leave. Money leaves in a way we can track. It shows up as a number going down, a receipt, a notification. So we guard it, we negotiate, we comparison shop. We get genuinely worked up over a $4.99 charge we don't even remember authorizing. Time doesn't work like that. Nobody gets a notification that says, you just spent 6 hours scrolling instead of starting that thing you said you'd start. A year doesn't vanish in one dramatic withdrawal. It leaks out in skipped phone calls, postponed plans, and decisions you keep telling yourself you'll get to once things settle down. It leaks out in the version of your business, your book, your relationship, your body, that you'll get serious about eventually, and things never quite settle down. That's not bad luck. That's just how the math works when later has no actual number attached to it. Here's the part that stings a little. Almost nobody experiences this as quitting or giving up. Nobody wakes up and decides, I'm going to waste this year. Ask someone mid-drift if they're wasting their life, and they'll say no. They're preparing. They're getting their ducks in a row. They're waiting until they feel more confident, more rested, more sure. The delay feels reasonable. It feels like wisdom. It feels like the smart move, right up until you look back and realize the readiness never showed up, because readiness was never actually the thing standing between you and starting. This is where Nick of Time stops being a song about getting older and starts being a pretty accurate description of how results actually get built, or quietly don't. Think about how anything that's ever worked out for someone actually got made. Not the picture-perfect version, the unglamorous version. Someone finally calls the contractor about the kitchen, even though they don't have the whole design figured out yet. Someone signs up for the 5K run while they're still winded walking up a flight of stairs. Someone sends the slightly awkward first text to a friend they drifted from instead of waiting for the smoothed over, perfectly worded version of that conversation to show up in their head. None of that feels like a turning point while it's happening. It just feels like doing the thing badly before you're any good at it. Multiply moments like that by a few hundred, and you get a body of work, a business, a relationship that actually held up. Now, compare that to the far more common pattern. Someone waits for the feeling of readiness to arrive first, treats that feeling as a prerequisite, and keeps waiting because the feeling, understandably, never fully shows up on schedule. Confidence doesn't arrive before taking action, it gets built by it, like a muscle that only forms under load. But if you're waiting for the emotional green light, you can wait for years and label it as patience, when really it's just time spent parked in the driveway instead of out on the road. You can watch this play out in almost any goal someone's been about to start for a while. Take the person who wants to write a book. They don't say, "I've given up on the book." They say they're still developing the idea, still waiting for the right season of life, still figuring out the outline in their head before they put anything on paper. 5 years later, the idea is exactly as developed as it was on day one, just older. Compare that to the person who just opens a blank document and writes one mediocre paragraph with no outline and no plan, simply to see what happens. One of them ends up with a draft. The other one ends up with a really well-preserved idea. The same pattern shows up with health, with relationships, with the business that's been in launch mode for years. The waiting almost never looks like avoidance from the inside. It looks like care, like doing this properly instead of half-assing it. The cruel irony is that the imperfect half-assed version, repeated enough times, usually beats the perfectly planned version that never leaves the planning stage. This is also why "where did the year go?" feels so different from "where did my paycheck go?" With money, you usually know exactly where it went, even when you regret it. Rent, groceries, that subscription you forgot to cancel. When it comes to time, the honest answer is almost always some version of, "I was waiting to feel ready, and I called the waiting something more respectable." Words like research, preparation, and timing get used to describe what is underneath, just delay with a better explanation attached to it. None of this means you need a dramatic mortality wake-up call to change course. And that's actually the trap hiding inside the seize the day version of this idea. It implies you need a crisis, a diagnosis, a milestone birthday before time starts mattering enough to act on. But the photographer who finally started booking weddings without the expensive cameras she kept telling herself she needed first, the guy who got his contractor's license at 43 instead of waiting for some imaginary moment when starting over felt less risky, the mom who started coaching her daughter's soccer team, having never coached anything in her life, none of them were responding to a crisis. They just quietly stopped treating someday as a real date on the calendar because it isn't one. They know that someday will never show up on its own, no matter how long they leave room for it. So maybe the sharper question isn't, am I making the most of my time? That question feels meaningful, but you can answer yes to it no matter what you actually did today, because it's too vague to pin anything down. The better question is the one you'd ask about money. Where exactly is this going? Not in some philosophical sense, literally. What did you do with this week? Not the week you're planning to have once things calm down. This one. The hours you just spent are already gone, whether you were paying attention to them or not. Bonnie Raitt didn't write a song about death. She wrote one about finally noticing that time spends the same way money does, except nobody's watching the balance, and there's no customer service line to call when it runs low. The people who end up somewhere they're proud of usually aren't the ones who felt readiest. They're the ones who treated the unremarkable days like they counted, because it turns out all of them do. If you're watching this and you need some one-on-one conversation with me, where we can flesh out what you're dealing with, join my school community. The link is in the description. And please, share this video with someone who's been having this same conversation with themselves. I'll see you in the next one.